It was a scene of carnage in Afghanistan after twin explosions near Kabul Airport killed at least 60 people, according to a health official, and injured dozens more. The first blast is thought to have been the work of a suicide bomber, passing among the crowds gathered for more than a week at one of the airport's main gates to try to get flights out of the country. The second was at a nearby hotel. Along with Afghan civilians, 12 US military personnel have died. The Ministry of Defence says there were no British casualties. The initial explosion took place just before dusk outside the Abbey Gate, leaving bodies strewn all over a sewage ditch. It's unclear how many were injured in the next blast at the Baron Hotel, further along the airport perimeter. There had been warnings in recent days that an offshoot of the Islamic State group in the region was planning an attack, and tonight IS has claimed it was behind the bombings. The Pentagon says evacuation flights will continue despite the threat of more attacks. With the very latest from Kabul, here's our chief international correspondent, Lise Doucette, and a warning her report contains some distressing images from the very beginning.
The feared attack, a bombing forewarned. Casualties rushed yet again into Kabul's emergency hospital after twin bombings close to Kabul Airport. This man was there.
I saw at least 400 or 500 people there. The explosion was really powerful. Half were held into the water, others on the ground outside. We carry the wounded here on stretchers, and here, my clothes are completely bloody.
So many wounded, some shoved into wheelbarrows. Afghans who'd hoped to be on an airplane tonight, flying to a safer place. This attack claimed by the Islamic State group shattered that hope and struck one of the deadliest blows against US troops in the past 20 years.
Let me just come back one moment.
The Pentagon put on a brave face.
I'd like to offer my profound condolences to the families of our servicemen and women and Afghan civilians who lost their lives today. We have put more than 5,000 US service members at risk to save as many civilians as we can. It's a noble mission, and today we have seen firsthand how dangerous that mission is. ISIS will not deter us from accomplishing the mission. I can assure you of that.
Hours earlier, in the center of Kabul, an ever-growing clamor. People desperate to find ways to get to that airport.
I was security guard with the British people, yes.
How many years?
Maybe 1 year I was, 12 years ago.
But now the British are saying it's too dangerous to go to the airport.
Dangerous, yes. I cannot go in an airport. I cannot go.
Even 3-year-old Salim is worried, just listening to his mother. Asma tells us they got to the airport and were sent from gate to gate. She says the Taliban asked, "Why do you want to leave?" and threatened to shoot her. Now it's been 2 days on this street for her exhausted children. The Taliban are now stopping Afghans from even traveling to the airport, but still they try.
They're bringing certificates. They're bringing flight details. They're bringing whatever letter they've ever had from any government anywhere in the world. Whatever the risks there are in going to the airport, whatever the risks there are at the airport today, for all of them, just look at this. For them, the greatest danger is staying here in Afghanistan.
And tonight, that danger all too clear. There'd been warnings for a week of an attack like this. A last strike against Western troops set to leave within days. Another blow to many Afghans' last hope of leaving this chaos behind. Lise Doucette, BBC News, Kabul.
Well, our correspondent Secunda Kamani is in Kabul, and our North America correspondent Ali Maqbool is in Washington. To you first, Secunda. There are reports tonight of more explosions in Kabul. What more do you know?
Yeah, that's right, Clive. We've heard a number of further explosions throughout the evening. The last one quite powerful, rattling our windows here. It's not entirely clear what they were. Some suggestion that they were controlled explosions carried out by American forces, destroying equipment as they prepare to leave. But either way, they're adding to a sense of anxiety after this awful attack. Amidst all the uncertainty about the prospect of life under the Taliban and what exactly that will look like, some Afghans have been clinging to the hope that at least things would be more peaceful. There wouldn't be more suicide bombings. There'd be no more rocket attacks. These blasts, though, really, I think, raising concerns that even if the Taliban's war with the Afghan government has come to an end, with groups like IS still operating, this country could see more bloodshed in the future. Meanwhile, evacuation flights are still continuing, but the efforts here are in their final stages, with a number of European countries announcing that they've already completed all the flights they were due to carry out. We expect the American forces to really pivot from evacuating American citizens and those vulnerable Afghans they're relocating to evacuating the thousands of American troops that they had brought in to oversee this relocation process.
Okay, Secunda, thank you for that. Live in Kabul. Let's go to Washington. Aleem Maqbool is there. Aleem, this is the worst single loss of life for the US military in several years in Afghanistan. What's been the reaction in America?
Yeah, it's been a grim, somber day here. The president has cleared his schedule today, had lots of emergency meetings. We're expecting, in fact, to hear from President Biden very shortly. As you say, certainly the greatest loss of US life for many years, the first loss of US military personnel lost in 18 months. And we've been hearing from a senior general about the circumstances of those deaths. He said it was simply unavoidable to have young US troops, men and women, based around the perimeter of this airfield to carry out physical checks on all of those who came onto the airfield. He described how in doing those checks, they wouldn't only touch the clothes of those they were checking, they would feel the breath on their faces as well. And of course, they've done that successfully for more than 104,000 people over the last week. But it is those who are carrying out those checks who have been killed. The question about whether evacuations continue, the Pentagon says they will continue, if anything, to honor the lives of those who lost their lives in the name of that mission earlier today.
Okay, Aleem, thank you. Aleem Maqbool there, live in Washington. Well, our security correspondent, Frank Gardner, is here. What is this offshoot of the Islamic State group, Frank, that's now claiming it's carried out these attacks?
Well, ISIS-K stands for Islamic State in Khorasan province. That's the name they've given to themselves. Their base, as you can see, they're right in the east of the country in Nangarhar province, close to the Pakistani border. And what are they? They are a militant group of fanatical jihadists. You can see them there. They are the Afghan branch of ISIS, Islamic State, the group that terrorized Iraq and Syria and for 5 years had its self-declared caliphate. How many are there? Well, they're thought to number about 2,000 altogether. They are extremist enemies of the Taliban, and that's going to sound strange. They're not on the same page. They've actually fought the Taliban in a number of clashes. As I say, there's about 2,000 of them. They have carried out some of the most barbaric attacks in Afghanistan over the last 6.5 years. They've targeted girls' schools, maternity wards, killing nurses, babies, and attacking wedding halls. So, ironically, now that the Taliban have taken over and are no longer an insurgency themselves, they are now facing an insurgency from ISIS, from this group, ISIS-K, and they may well actually have to call for American help to deal with them.
Okay. Frank, thank you. Frank Gardner, our security correspondent.